First, thank you for joining us today for the evolution of clean beauty. The name is pretty self-explanatory, but today we are so lucky to be joined by one of our OG friends and founder, Tara Foley, the founder of Foley, which we are all so overwhelmingly familiar with here at the studio. Just a little bit about Tara to expound on her many accomplishments. So over a decade ago, Tara became a leading advocate for more transparency in the beauty industry. Her own clean beauty journey inspired her to create Foley, Gaelic for healthy and wholesome, as the first US beauty retailer to have a public-facing ingredient policy for environmental health. In addition to curating the best clean beauty retail, Foley has owned a line of skincare has a owned line of skincare essentials, which was born from one-on-one consultations with thousands of people seeking to make the switch to clean beauty. Tara is an advisor to various mission-driven and CPG companies and a board member of the trade association NOHBA. Tara, thank you so much for joining us. We have founders, it was said before, but I do want to repeat, Tara was emphatic, and so are we, that today's session be super collaborative. This will not be a talking head session. Tara is going to take it away, but feel free to interject, to come off mute, say your hello, say whatever you'd like. This is going to be a fun one. So Tara, I will hand it off to you because they are not here to see me today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the intro, and I'm just going to say it again. I hope that we can make today a little bit more of a conversation. I can certainly be a talking head if I need to be. I can talk people's ears off if you'd like, but I think like the whole point of this conversation today is really talking about something that's become a little bit almost controversial in some ways, just like this evolution of mission-driven, clean, environmental health driven beauty. And so I have a bunch of questions for you all at the end, but would love for you all to interject with your questions throughout, or like thoughts or anything. So again, yeah, please just jump off mute or however you're comfortable, jumping in. I know there's a lot of familiar faces here. Of friends and people I've met over the years. So thanks to you all who've joined, and thanks to the Brain Trust crew. Kendra is a great friend, and I'm very happy to be here. So yeah, so again, like I'm hopefully I'd like to be a resource to all of you today, and I think that this is a topic that has become a little bit controversial, but remains extremely important. And that's what I want to talk about today, why it's so important and how you can lean into different elements of quote unquote clean and environmental health driven beauty in ways that make sense for your brand. So first I'm going to give a little bit of background on me and why I'm the one discussing this here today. So I've been doing this for a long time now, for over 10 years. And, it started off with a personal focus on health and wellness that turned into a blog, that turned into me quitting my day job in New York and going to work on a lavender farm to learn about terroir and growing, to going to work for a skincare manufacturer, to getting an MBA, to eventually opening what we call the first clean beauty retailer in the US. And we say that because we were the first ones in the US to have an ingredient policy of what we allowed and didn't allow in the products that we curated in our shop. Okay, so we opened that in 2013. I raised a couple rounds of, angel investment after that, and then took on a really big investor partner in 2016 to then grow our digital platform and open more stores. We took all the insights from that to develop our own line in D2C, which then expanded to wholesale. Then we leaned into the education and product distribution. And actually just last week, we announced that we were acquired by our competitor in the space, but now partner Credo. So the reason why we agreed to that, and we are so super excited about it, is again, it's for the mission. There needed to be a single leading activist standard when it comes to ingredients, and And we had a lot to offer Credo, and they certainly had so much to offer us, and we believe they were the right ones to be that leading activist retail standard. So super exciting. This is my whole timeline. I can't even believe it. So I'm still involved with Credo, and I will be for the foreseeable future, but I'm also a lot of time just freed up. So I'm thinking on what's next, which is daunting. Let me see how I can see the chat while I'm sharing screen. Of course, I don't know how to do that. Oh, here we go. Oh, thanks, Natalie, on the congrats. All right, now I'm going to keep this chat open. Cool. Thank you very much. So yeah, so that's my story. So I guess this is all to say that I've spent a lot of time and effort shaping what, has become this quote unquote clean category and an important part of the industry. And I've worked with everybody from investors to manufacturers to all of the retailers, and was really at the forefront of this category. And I'll say, before we jump into the controversy and how we can adapt it and how we can lean into what matters, I do want to just go into just to quickly cover, despite all of those things, clean is still driving a massive amount of growth in the beauty industry, right? It's still growing at a faster CAGR than the entire industry as a whole. It's still, drawing in tons of new brands and tons of new customers on a regular basis. And it's important, right? To all of those stakeholders I mentioned, to the investors, to, the conglomerates, to, manufacturers, and everything has really shifted to accommodate clean. So while there's a lot of controversy around it, right, and there's a lot of things to be said, and I'm excited to get into that conversation with you all today, it's still really important from, the bottom line perspective, which matters. As we're all business people here, that matters, right? So because it's become so important, of course, every single retailer took note, right? So we were the first ones in the country with a restricted substance list. Now every retailer has a clean curation, right? And that is really cool. That's really cool to see that, there was so much impact made and that everybody noticed. There's also some downsides to that, right? So without any federal regulation of the term clean and really of the entire beauty category in the entire beauty industry, it means that this is leading to a little bit of confusion and debate, right? So the biggest beauty retailers in the world and biggest CPG retailers in the world, they all have different standards. They all have different curations. And what does that mean for the customer that we're trying to convince that that this is such an important thing? So it's created some confusion. In some ways, it's made things a little bit harder to make that impact. But in other ways, again, it's awesome that the conversation is being had. So what I'm here today to hopefully talk with you all about, and again, have an open conversation. It's a smaller group. I think all of you have some level of interest in this, right? Or dedication to this. What I'm here to talk about is how clean has become less differentiating, right? And I, as one of the pioneers of this category, will be the first one to say it. Clean has become less differentiating, much more table stakes for brand identification. So when we started, I called us the first clean beauty retailer in the country, and that was enough, right? That was enough to differentiate us and make us stand apart. Now, you kind of have to have the ingredients and the packaging and everything to meet clean on some level, to meet that standard on some level. And I think what has happened now is we've gotten into this world in which you need to be much more specific about your environmental health mission as it relates to ingredients, packaging, animal welfare, environmental equity, and beyond. And it also means that you need to take this opportunity to amplify your specific environmental health mission, and how in ways partnerships with some of the nonprofits out there and awesome platforms, using a specific ingredient that's really special, using specific packaging that's really special, and really amplifying that hard work that you're doing. So many of us, to be completely honest, did it because we thought it was table stakes and important and part of the mission, but didn't amplify it quite enough. So I cannot hesitate. I can't downplay that enough. I think amplification of the hard work you're doing is important. And then I wanted to call out the fact that there are nonprofits that are working very closely to support BIPOC communities specifically. And the ones that I'm familiar with, and I know there are tons of others, but We Act for Environmental Justice in New York, the Resilient Sisterhood in Massachusetts, Women for Wellness in LA, and many others. And so I think, like, Kendra asked me to come up with a presentation on clean beauty today, which is the conversation that I'm having, right? But she said, how does it impact our brand founders specifically in brain trust? And this is a very, very specific topic that, relates to all of you and your background. So I want to dig in on this slide if people are interested in, raising their hand and jumping in and talking about how questions you have on ingredients and on any of these partners or any of it. I'd love to just like make this again a little bit more of a conversation, see what questions or thoughts you all have today, or even just on the fact that clean is now like not as much a thing as it used to be. So does anybody want to kick it off, or else I'm going to move into, my slide of questions for you all. More content.
Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm Natalie King. I'm the CEO and founder of Fleuret. It's a hair wellness brand for women. Kind of think more health and beauty mix, kind of a L'Oreal meets Johnson & Johnson. So the idea of merging health, kind of weaving that into our brand stories is kind of central to what we do. And I guess to your point around, actually, I'm rude. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh. No, happy to.
But to your point around this sort of topic being table stakes, is there sort of anything that's kind of standing out from the perspective of certifications or just the way brands are talking about themselves that is being used to differentiate within the category right now, like certifications that are from a consumer perspective feeling much more authentic. I think I saw on another page things like cruelty free is not necessarily ringing as or even the word organic is definitely ringing a little hollow for some as well in terms of how they're perceiving it in terms of greenwashing. So just any sort of I guess certifications that you would say are kind of standing out right now for you.
I think it's a great question, and thank you for it. There are so many different certifications out there, and there are so many different standards. Like I showed, like every single, how do I go backwards? Every single retailer out there. And this doesn't even include, of course, the more activist ones like, Foley and Credo and all of them. I think taking a step back, depending on where you are in your journey with your brand and how much like you can invest and commit to this part of your brand's story, I really think it matters it's really important for you to take a step back and think about what matters most to you, right? So while cruelty-free is table stakes in a way and has become a little bit less important for huge brands, right, that can do it all, if you're a new brand to the category, you can lean into that in a really, really robust way. So it could be, getting the baseline, PETA, cruelty-free international, all of that, but then partnering with another group to do really beautiful content, support, monetary support, like team support, getting your team out there and doing stuff. And you can really go deep in it and make that your brand, if that makes sense. But what I'm saying is I think instead of just saying you're clean or mission driven, which is just a mass generalization at this point, really figure out which pillar of clean and conscious and mission driven you are. And, animal, cruelty free is one example, but say it's like toxicity, right? So, or what would it be for you? Do you have any idea what it would be for you?
Well, we definitely kind of hone in on our ingredient deck. So we're pretty ingredient focused. And then outside of that, we're new. So we launched about a month and some change ago, super new. And a lot of our packaging decisions came down to supply chain issues during the pandemic, as most of them probably had the same experience. So our packaging message, we use all sort of shatterproof glass and just sort of like we had that packaging sustainability message as well. So I would say those are the two strongest right now, but we could
So-
probably explore others too.
So that's awesome. And again, my recommendation would almost be to, like, in the early stages when you're trying to, and I don't know how early your brand is, but, like, you know, before you have more mass like awareness and like huge brand awareness, I really, really, really recommend, and this is like me putting on my merchant hat, right? As like a merchant at Foley, like leaning into one of those things. So if it's just ingredients or just packaging, of course you're doing both and you're working hard on both. And from there, starting with that bud and turning that into, like, do you care about ingredients for a specific community? Do you care about ingredients for a long-term, like, you know, to remedy a long-term illness, right? So there's some people that get in because of personal stories or family stories. And I think, like, really leaning into that one aspect, as opposed to, again, like throwing darts at all of them, is really, really important. Because again, like, saying that you're all clean and green and environmental friendly and all of it is important, but it's also like you need to be able to substantiate a level deeper with, okay, what are you doing? So say you did go down into ingredients, right? And you said ingredients matter most to us. I think it's like, what studies are you using to back up the ingredients that you use, and how are you contributing to these studies? That type of thing, right? And really leaning in deeply into that. And then of course, people will be pleasantly surprised if you're bringing in a customer on that platform. That customer will be happy that you're doing it right in all the other respects. And by the way, doing it right in all the other respects is going to get you in the door at all of these other platforms and programs at these big retailers. But I think leaning into one aspect is how you build your brand around environmental health these days. It can't just be all of it. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. Thank you so much.
Okay, totally. Anybody else want to jump in with any of these?
Like we have 2 hands up.
Okay, I can't see them.
Dorian, did you want to go?
Yes. Hi, Tara. So great to see you, and congrats on the acquisition. So my question is, and I don't know if you're going to get to it later, but it feels like within the beauty space, there's now this like anti-clean movement. And I was just curious, any advice on how to navigate that, knowing that there's this very vocal, strong voice that's kind of going antithesis to kind of this clean movement.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. And that was kind of, that was the inspiration for this presentation, because not only has it become controversial and a huge debate, but it's also so important. Like, these things that we're talking about, the ingredients and packaging, are so important from my point of view, right? There are people, for those of you who aren't involved in this or aren't aware of this kind of debate and controversy, there's a lot of groups out there that are saying that clean is not science-backed, it's not effective, and that it's fear-mongering. I believe they're saying it because of everything you see on this slide here. Clean has gotten a ton of attention, right? Like, it has gotten a ton of attention and dollar share and everything. So there are, of course, people that are coming and debating the fact that that it's viable, let's just say, right? And I love healthy debates. And I think that, like, you know, when you start seeing healthy debates like this, you realize that something is actually getting the attention that it deserves, right? So note to all of you, once you get it really big, like huge, right? Huger, hopefully, than I have ever made it, that, you know, people will start knocking you down at a certain point, and that's when you know you really made it, right? But anyhow, so getting back to Dorian's awesome point. So I think it's really up to you. You all have this opportunity to decide what matters most to you and your brand, right? So, like, there are a lot of cosmetic chemists out there that are saying that that clean beauty isn't viable. But at the end of the day, like, clean beauty brands, you know, Foley included and many others out there, are doing all of the things that those cosmetic chemists say clean beauty brands aren't, right? So if you have the ability to do clinical trials and use clinical supported ingredients and to do all of the testing for safety and all of it, you can be both, right? Like you can serve both. You can be a clean, environmentally friendly brand that's supporting the health of yourself, your family, and your community, at the same time as making this very viable, science-backed product. And so, you know, I think that debate's going to go away, to be completely honest, because they are making an argument that you can't, that these brands and products are not viable scientifically. But it's like, it's just not factual, right? Like if you have all these clinical studies saying that you are, like, it's just not factual. So I think it's a healthy debate and I love seeing it, to be honest, but I think that that debate's probably going to die down as more clean brands do it the right way. But I think, Dorian, you're probably bringing up the point, how much do you want to say, oh, I'm clean, oh, I'm environmentally friendly during a time like this where it is such a debate? And again, this comes back to this recommendation that I'm making today. I don't think you should call yourself like clean, eco, all these things. I think you should lean into which element of that you mean specifically. So, you know, again, is there an ingredient toxicity story that you want to lean into about one or many ingredients? Is there a packaging story? Is there, you know, like a environmental equity story, like how you're giving back to certain communities and partnering with them? And I think that focus, a specific focus to your brand, and while doing everything the right way is my recommended approach. I think, yeah, that would be I don't know if that's helpful, Dorian, but that's just my gut. What do you think? Does that satisfy you or no?
Yeah, what's interesting about it is that it feels like it coincided with kind of this rise of the resurgence of drugstore brands like the CeraVe's and Cetaphils of the world. Yep. And it's being driven a lot by these skin influencers. So it's just an interesting time to kind of be in the space, given that the pendulum kind of continues to swing.
Well, sorry to be the one to say this, and you know, everybody can take it for what it's worth, but those brands that are being supported by dermatologists and cosmetic chemists who do not get training in environmental health in their training. So like you see it in overall health and wellness, like, you know, like the training on nutrition and wellness is absent in a lot of kind of, you know, in a lot of the major training for these types of professions, right? So we, for instance, work with the very first green chemists in the entire country and world, right? And these are people that are advocating for environmental health to be represented in cosmetic chemist training, because right now it's just like they go to school and they are trained on how to create a molecule to solve, you know, to solve a marketing need for a product and how to create that most efficiently, right? They're not trained on how to consider the impact when that molecule goes down the drain, or the impact on somebody's body or the long-term health, right? So that is absent in their training. So of course they're saying this isn't real, right? Because it wasn't part of their training. And these are really credentialed people that I, you know, have a lot of respect for, by the way. So I think it's just who is waving the flag at any given time, but you got to go what matters most and what feels right to you, right? So it's a weird time for sure. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So, okay. So who's next? Sorry, I can't really see.
I'll go next.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Tara. I'm Kim Roxy, founder of Lamique Beauty. This is not my question, but I'm just wondering, is this your first presentation since the acquisition, since it was announced last week?
Oh yeah, I didn't know when it was going to happen. So Kendra asked me to do this, like, I don't know, in August. And I was like, I have a lot going on. I was like, I don't know where, like, if the company, like what state we're going to be in. And so finally I told her, maybe I'll be able to like do it at the end of October, because I wanted to be able to be straight with everybody. And, you know, if I was still in the process, which by the way, that was a process that took so much time and energy, and like I could do a whole presentation on just that, right? But so this is my first time talking to anybody really. I've been under a rock for the past week. So sorry for coming across as polished as I could.
No, I mean, that brings so much energy to the conversation. So congratulations though. And it's a great triumph to see another woman do that. So
thank you.
Congratulations to you. So I have a question for you, because, you know, you brought up around even like differentiating yourself and things like that, do you see for color cosmetics, just there more room still to have this conversation? Because, you know, if you go inside of I would say a clean beauty store, that's one of the things. It's like for my complexion, being able to find something. So that's what got me into it, right? So I just wonder, you know, we talk about differentiating. Do you think that's enough just to be from the inclusive standpoint? Because there are still not many choices in regards to that. What's your thoughts around that? Because I know the conversation, you know, we're BIPOC founders and just thinking about that.
So Kim, let me just ask you one question to make sure I'm clear on your question, right? So you're saying, is it enough to be like making products for you, right? And clean. I like, if that's your question, is that the question?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah. And around inclusivity, just in all the way across the board. But yeah. So
I want to say it would be enough, but to be honest, there have been a bunch of really beautiful brands to pop up in the color space recently. And one of the things I've been wishing that I could see is like, you know, it's like clean and inclusive, right? That's so awesome. But I think my instinct is that is also going to become not enough soon, right? And so I think clean and inclusive, and then, and what else are you doing to support those two elements, right? So I think what happened with clean, and one of the reasons why this movement is getting kind of dragged through the mud, is because it's like, you can't just say clean and you can't just put labels on things. And so I think that's why I'm leaning so hard into like, you know, partnerships, nonprofits, like how you and your team are getting out there and activating in other ways. And you can show, like, you know, everything's on social now, like you can show everything you do, right?
Right.
I think showing the ways that you support those two pillars is going to become so imperative, and it's kind of fun, right? Because it's something that you and your team can think about what's authentically representative of your brand, right? And I just think that throwing labels on stuff and saying like, we make this beautiful brand and these beautiful products and we're clean and inclusive is awesome, but I just think that you're going to need more, and thinking about how to do that now is important, right? Because this stuff takes a long time.
So when you say dig in, so for instance, from a personal standpoint, my mom passed of metastatic breast cancer, and there being so much research around parabens being connected to breast tissue and all of that. And so we've raised a lot of money for uninsured Black women to get mammograms through my company. And so to that point, so you're saying even leaning in on that side of it and saying that for us, we're really like paraben-free makeup, right? And talc-free is pretty much what we kind of talk from. And so you're talking about just leaning in on that side of it and sort of explaining that, and the reason why we're trying to help save women that look like me lives through the makeup that we use and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim, that's so I'm sorry, but
I
like
appreciate that.
But that's a beautiful thing you're doing. And honestly, I've seen your brand and I've like looked into it, and I didn't know that you did that for women. Like I didn't know that you gave back in that way. And I don't know that it needs to be everywhere and on your front page here. It doesn't need to be on all your landing pages and your homepage and whatever, but like I just think that, you know, being able to say it loud and clear that you are doing things like that is important. And I don't think everybody can say that, just so you know. So like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, a lot of us are doing it because it's the right thing. We're doing a lot of things because we believe it's the right thing, but we're not amplifying it. And I think amplification of this stuff is really important right now, because, you know, as retail becomes like, you know, more and more confusing, I think it's up to brands to very clearly, more specifically define who they are in the market. And that is such a beautiful representation of who you are as a founder and brand. So I would, that and other things you do, I would recommend amplifying it a little bit more.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? I think I saw another hand before, or I think somebody, yep.
Hi, Makeba here from Santana, me and Butter by Keba. I think we've met before through Gay and Noba. We've been in a room together.
Yes, it's nice to see you.
You listened to my rant back then about fragrance, so it's so good to see you again.
It's nice to see you too, and I'm right there with you on all of it. So don't apologize.
Yeah, I was just kind of, and so I wanted to get your, I mean, there's so much I want to bring up, but I'll keep it short. I wanted to ask, well, congratulations on your merge. Well, your acquisition and merger. I feel like you both are on the same mission, so it's kind of like a partnership, and I've really been enjoying the Credo Clean Beauty for Change school university that we're in. So, this new campaign just rolled out on the 13th, the campaign for clean cosmetics, which we're all really excited about. There's a lot there in terms of their lists and their studies. I kind of wanted to get your overall response to it and all the, the different ingredients that are on there. There are a lot of ingredients on there that for some of us, we thought were safe and clean, but are not. And I'm just finding a lot of contradictions in terms of what's safe and what's not. For instance, phenoxyethanol, which everyone is a big question mark, but it's on their list. So that's one thing. And then I just wanted to get your input on the idea of clean from an inclusive, not just inclusive, but accessible standpoint in terms of communities outside of communities that are underserved, that are underrepresented, young people, Gen Z, do you see this movement broadening in terms of imaging, in terms of package design? Because when I look at this screen, everything looks the same and cohesive. And so from a merchant standpoint, does clean have a look? Does it have it? Because for me as a Black woman, I was in that, and I spoke about this webinar with Beauty Independent and how the chemist was so angry at this word clean because it gave the connotation that everything else is unclean. And as a Black woman, when I live in Harlem, and it's changed, but you still have some very low income areas. I grew up in project housing. And so when you use the word clean, from the standpoint of a young Black woman who may live in housing, she may not, and the imaging that's being put in front of her, if the imaging and the messaging for clean beauty doesn't look like her, it sends a weird message. It may be taken in a way where, well, am I not clean? Because historically, right, when we looked at the history of Black people in this country, we were not, and so many other ethnicities were not seen as clean. And so I'm just wondering where the opportunity may be for clean to be a broader landscape, image-wise, messaging-wise. Who is clean for? Clean is for everyone, but is it accessible? And so I kind of just wanted to get your input on that because it's important. It's important for me. I do my work in the community. I'm working with young people to teach them about aromatherapy, and I have them bring in their favorite products, but their favorite products are not clean, but they're affordable. And so I'm just curious about that.
That was like so many amazing thoughts and questions in there. So because I know you had something about the campaign for cosmetics first, so I'll get back to that, right? So let's start with the second part, because I feel like that's like the biggest and most important question. And I see Amber here said, it all starts with education. I couldn't agree with you more, Amber. So, and I think it sounds like you're already doing education with these communities and these girls. And I would love to hear what you're hearing from them, right? Because we've done a lot of work with, I don't know, do you know about We Act for Justice? They're right around
the corner from my house. They're 2 blocks from my house.
Have you done work with them before?
Yeah, when we were campaigning for Obama, we worked closely with We Act. For grassroots organizing and, educating the community on the importance of voting in the right, not just president, but local politicians. So yeah, I am very familiar with We Act now. And it started with just that park that the park was supposed to be just a dumping ground
Right.
for sewage. The win for was supposedly the win for the community was the park. It still stinks, but at least we have a park. But that's how that whole mission started, with
Yeah.
community
Well,
fighting.
now they have a project called Beauty Inside Out. So, and so if you're not doing anything with that yet, definitely check it out. It is very, very cool what they're doing, but it sounds like they're doing what you're doing just with your brand, right? So they're going in and bringing in, they're talking to like schools and to, young women's groups, and basically saying like what Amber's, just mentioned, like saying, okay, what are you using today? Do you know what's in them? And do you know that you're being targeted basically with these horrible ingredients, and just educating as early as possible? Because it's like, the thing is we as women, and I think it's mainly, femme identifying people on this call, right? So like, we start using products like when we're 12, right? If not earlier. And those are quite often the products that you think that or that you end up sticking with for the foreseeable future. So anyhow, so We Act and others are going in and educating really, really early. And I think that's something that, everybody has a responsibility to do. And so the hard thing about this quote unquote clean beauty movement is that it was so based in natural ingredients, which aren't even like, natural ingredients are from all over the world, right? So like the origin, there's just so much to say about this. And I totally agree that it's become very whitewashed in its early stages. I don't think that is the case, or that's going to be the case going forward, because of brands like all the ones on the line right now. And that's why, honestly, that's why I was super excited when Kendra asked me to speak, is because, it needs to be more representative, and it needs to be from like passionate new brands that are like cool and doing it the right way, but also doing it very specifically with what matters to their brand. And that's going to be the evolution of clean. And I think that you all can be at the forefront of that. To be completely honest, I don't think that the word clean is going to be used very much. And like, let's just say 2 years, 3 years from now, I don't even know if that word is going to be used as much as it is today. I think that it's going to be much more about what is that specific thing that makes you mission driven, and that makes your mission attached to environmental health and wellness. And I think that it's not going to be until other groups start doing a lot of work to make up for how it's gotten to here, to like give the space and the platform to be able to get there. But I'm already seeing so much of that change. And I hope, it sounds like many people here in these, in the Credo for Change program, in these, the BCPP program, in, EWG's program, all of them. And so I would tell you to get as many resources as you can from all of those. That's what I did in the beginning, right? And so like, why wouldn't anybody do that, right? Take as many resources as you can and really lean into what makes you special. And again, go back in there and educate as early and as often. And like, I think if you get your pitch down perfectly about your specific attachment to this movement, and you start talking to groups often, those groups get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so that's why I think, again, now that this has become a little broader, this clean thing, and that broad is not as useful. I think just being specific about what matters most to you with this. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess all I'm saying is I agree with you on all of the things you said. And I think, but that being said, I think that the future of environmental health and of wellness and all of this is going to look different in the beauty industry, because a lot of people realize that it needs to.
Yeah. Thank you. And just really quick, have you thought about going back to the farm or getting into organic farming advocacy? I could really
Yeah, I would love to. I need to take a minute. There's a lot of work to be done to transition the company over, but then I think I'm just going to take like a couple weeks just to like reflect, which sounds very luxurious, to be honest. But I also think if I don't do it, I have 2 little kids at home. If I don't just like disappear, I won't get the headspace. I'm seeing a lot of really awesome comments, and thank you everybody for them, because I guess I'll just say I'm shaking my head. Yeah, in agreement with everybody. So I also want to get to the campaign for clean cosmetics question, but I also will say, if I can be a resource to anybody going forward on any of this, like to help you specify what your, piece of this mission is, to help you figure out how to amplify it, and also to help advocate for, like, the doors and, all of these different groups. To be honest, I think you'll be just as successful as I would be, but if I can be helpful, please just let me know. So for the campaign for clean cosmetics, do you mean the breast cancer prevention one? Is that the one you're talking about, or which one are you talking about?
The campaign, the campaign for breast cancer prevention.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just came out with they had been working on this for about a year and a half, a list of top, and then some of the founders are in here. Congratulations to everyone who made the list. But yeah, I remember getting that list when they were first just rounding up folks, and there were a lot of ingredients on there that I didn't understand why they were on there, but I guess, they did tests and found that, some may interact with the reproductive system, and there were some that were just like, well, yeah, this, because it does this to help the reproductive system, you know what I mean? Like, this is what the stuff that we know that we use to help with certain issues. So I was just, vitamin E, I'm like, I started taking vitamin E when I started getting hot flashes, to get rid of the hot flashes. Yeah, and it works, so there just seemed to be some contradictions on there. I just want to, and this other contradictions, phenoxyethanol is on there, on that list, but and I think just recently there was a chemist at Credo, on one of Credo's workshops, that said, oh, it's fine. So I'm just, how do we navigate through the contradictions in some cases where,
I totally get what you're saying, and I empathize. And I'll just say again, please don't get angry at me for, like, just repeating myself over and over again. But
no, not at all.
This is yet another reason why it's so important to figure out which pillar of clean is most important to you to lean into. So again, like, if you are really focused on prevention of long-term illness in human health, specifically as it relates to breast cancer, which they are very specifically focused on, your ingredients should look different, like in terms of how you prioritize your chemistry. It's going to probably look, your internal list, which you should all have, by the way, like, there are millions of lists out there, right? But you should have the list that supports your brand. Like, you can take a little bit of each of what is out there, but in the absence of a federal definition of this stuff, you need to come up with what's best for your brand. And so your list will look different if you're a brand that's very focused on that long-term illness versus a brand that is really focused on aquatic health and, like, ocean, like a blue brand, who's more focused on, the water and environmental health in that respect. So of course, like, in a perfect world, they're all reaching towards the same thing, but they'll be slightly different based on what your brand is speaking to and what your mission is specifically. So, but just to answer your question, so they are the campaign for safe cosmetics and breast cancer prevention partners. So to be honest, I was kind of under a rock with the deal. So, like, I was aware that they were working on it. I'm a part of that group. I'm on all the communications, but I wasn't, like, deep into it. But I know for a fact that they and other groups and other similar groups they don't recognize the dose and percentage of ingredients. So they say they take I forget what it's called. I can't believe I'm blanking. I'm so not polished right now. Again, I haven't talked for like a week, so I'm like, but they basically take this approach where they say zero is what you should have, versus, I'm surprised to hear that Credo said that they think it's okay. I think they probably have a percentage limitation. So they probably say that that phenoxyethanol is okay up to a certain percentage. And that would be a more conservative, but like more wide reaching approach. But somebody who's coming from an activist, NGO or nonprofit, you have to consider where they're coming from. They're going to say, why would you put it in if there's alternatives? Zero. So they take a very different approach. So you have to determine what's best for you. So we actually at Full Lane there was a percentage. Okay. So yeah. So I don't know if that was the percentage for breast cancer prevention or for Credo, but again, like it depends on where you're coming from and who is making the standard. That's why, again, you have to pull from all the different standards. Yeah, see, again, that makes sense that Credo did that. So you have to pull from which of the standards make the most sense for your brand. So then when customers, by the way, on DMs and on social and in your customer service chat start saying like, oh, well, you don't meet this standard, you can say, we meet the standard that best serves this part of our mission, right? And our standard is this way because of X, Y, and Z. And like, that takes a lot of work, but you're so well served to have that kind of root system and grounding in what is best for your brand. Because again, it's going to continue to get a little weird out there with the debate on what ingredients are clean and dirty and what's right and wrong and whatever. But as long as you can justify what's best for your mission, you're good. You're totally good. Okay. What else? I know we're getting short on time here. So I think you all covered most of this. I was nervous that people weren't going to ask questions because sometimes, you get into these groups and it's like crickets, but if you didn't, I was going to put it on to you all. Like, what do you hope next for the intersection of beauty and wellness, environmental health and equity? And it sounds like in between the chat and these questions, everybody hopes to, see it look and feel differently. And I'm very confident it will with everybody's participation. Okay, here's another hand. We can see the hands. Please chime in.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? I'm Karima. I'm one of the co-founders of Sabrine Cosmetics. We are a clean luxury beauty brand. My question is regarding more so around retail.
Yeah.
Obviously, every retailer is different, from being like a specialty retailer to a department store. So I was wondering about what are you guys looking for regarding clean beauty, and where do you see the trends going for products? And my other question was, do you think for brands it's best to pitch before they launch the product to you guys for retail, or after the product is launched and you guys the brand has more traction? So those are my questions.
Those are great questions. I'll do my best with them. So luckily I have experience as both a merchant and retailer who selected brands, but also we are a brand and our product line is distributed in Ulta. So had some experience on that front too. And I will say, to the second part of your question, I think you're always very well served to partner with a leading priority retailer. And obviously there will be others, but like to have a leading priority retailer partner that you share your product development pipeline with, to get feedback, to see how it fits into that retailer's portfolio. I don't think it serves you well to really bend over backwards and like make massive changes, right? But I do think it helps strengthen the partnership, for one, because it shows that you really care very much about that retailer. It also helps ensure that it helps you ensure that you'll get some space, right? Because you're saying, listen, I'm making the product that you told me you had space for, that fits your portfolio, that fills a need. There's thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of products out there for retailers to choose from now. And I think if you get the very special opportunity to partner with one of these retailers, I think treating it very wisely like treating them as a true partner is really important. I will say you can't just like assume, and I know you all know this, but I'll just say it, like you can't assume that just because your product is on their shelf, it's going to sell. Like you have to do so much work on your own to amplify your brand and to, again, lean into what makes your brand special in all the different channels, and to, quite frankly, drive traffic for your brand to the retailer, which is hard and expensive. So I do think, you know, partnering with them is important, and getting in the kitchen with them is important, but also, you know, making sure that you have enough to invest in driving the traffic and the brand. I think to the first part of your question, there are a lot of categories that, quite frankly, I think could use more innovation. I also think what's really special about this conversation specifically is there's a lot of ingredients and products that are missing for whole communities and types of customers. And so, you know, I think that I'm a huge believer in market research on any level that you can afford to do it. And I think that engaging with your customer on, even if it's just social, or if you can invest in any kind of, you know, bigger market research, is really, really important to see, you know, the people that your brand resonates with, what are they looking for? Because this is, again, your special opportunity to lean in with that community specifically. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's a lot of opportunity for innovation right now. And it feels like there isn't because there's so many products, but I think there still is. And I think, you know, we do a ton of asking our community how they want to see us change the current products or what products they're looking for. And that has always been the most valuable way to guide next steps for us. So.
Yes, thank you so much. It was super helpful, and congratulations as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody. That's really sweet to hear this. I appreciate it.
Well, Tara, if there was any concern that people weren't going to ask you questions.
Yeah, here we go. We're getting down to the wire.
I think we have time for one more, and then we will wrap this up. I saw one more hand go up. Jasmine, did you want to ask your question?
Hi, thank you for coming. Congratulations on everything. Super excited to be your first call after that. So, you know, we were talking a little bit before about certifications, and then specifically like what is important to us. I'm Jasmine. I have a brand called Hot Jupiter that's technically still in development, and we're in the middle of kind of going back through what certifications make the most sense for our company. And because we are focusing on teens and like breakout care and things like that, one thing that's really important to us as founders is like, you know, what is going to interrupt or hopefully not interrupt the endocrine system. So I saw Made Safe as one of the ones on there. And I was familiar with them a lot more on environmental safety as far as creating ingredients, but specifically for like EDCs, is this something that you kind of recommend for Made Safe, or maybe anyone different? Because it seems like, you know, Environmental Working Fund, Environmental Defense Fund, a lot of different people are starting to, you know, do different types of screenings for companies too.
Yeah. It's a great question. I love that you're focusing on endocrine disruption. I think like if you can be specific on that, I think a lot of people are much more aware, especially if you're in that specific time period where people are like, you know, older teens and thinking about fertility and all of that. It's a very important, critical moment in development. And I think it's a topic that people are talking about more. So, but I'll just say, out of all of the certifications and like processes you can go through with these different partners, Made Safe is definitely the hardest. So for that reason, I think it's like really powerful and beautiful and awesome. I will say it's like really, really hard on you as a brand to go through the process and also to maintain it. I, you know, like just take that for what it's worth, I guess. So it's like it's a very big investment. I know a ton of brands that have done it. We considered doing it ourselves, but ultimately we made the decision that it didn't have enough awareness as an entity for us to invest in. So we decided we're also very, very, very focused on like human, like the toxicity stuff, and in a similar way, not as specifically on EDCs, but we decided to partner with EWG Verified because it has a little bit more of a platform. It also, like a lot of people, it's kind of controversial now because of all the things that we've been discussing in this conversation. But that being said, it was very helpful. It was a very helpful certification for us to have. They have a lot of like very big celebrity partners and things like that, which not all of these certifying, bodies have. If you as a brand are going to invest in a really big way in other amplification efforts, and you're not as worried about, having those come through your third-party certifier, or having that as a benefit, I guess then that becomes less important. It's just a note for you specifically. I don't know if you've looked into the process yet, but MadeSafe is really, really, it's MadeSafe that I'm talking about. It's a very stringent process. I like it for that reason, but it's very stringent, like really hard.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I think the other thing that, like you were saying, is just the name of the certification. Just when polling people, they're just kind of like, well, what is that? So it becomes more so like an onus, I feel like, on the brand that we would have to still, market what even it is, as opposed to kind of having like our experts who's already kind of gone through our ingredients. Especially since it's something that seems like, different ingredients pop up on the list continuously. So something we'd have to kind of continuously monitor as well.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's been so much research done on the fact that like certifications are not going to sell your brand. They're just another they're another prong in like this support system that you're building for all the things we've been talking about today. Like you got to get super specific on the mission and on the piece that you care about most. And then it's just another thing to support that. And there are some customers, and they're usually the loudest, that ask for support, right? And so having that is helpful. And at the end of the day, though, it's not like the masses know what any of these are, right? Yeah. So I wouldn't rely on them for like doing a lot of work on your behalf. It's just like, of course, if you're going through the process, you'd like for it to have a little bit more awareness, right? If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost like brand protection too, right? Like how Jordan was talking about earlier, like there's this, group now that just seems to be so anti if you put anything on there that's clean. And so for us, just wanting to make sure that we have different certifications or different things that we can kind of document and back us up, and really kind of prove like these are the things that are important to us. And whether we are Credo Clean or Clean at Sephora or what have you, like these are the things that we've made sure to kind of do as a brand to make sure that we felt like our products are safe, not only for like our own kids, but for everyone else,
I don't know if all of you know about Novi. Have you heard of Novi? So
yeah,
it's mainly for people that are formulating products to get access to like ingredients and packaging. That's mainly what the tool is. But in the platform, they have all of the different certifications. And I've actually learned, I do a lot of advising work for Novi, and I learned through that EcoCert has some of the highest awareness solely because it's an international. It's the only one that's international. So MadeSafe and EWG don't really have any awareness internationally. So I guess like, again, it's thinking about your brand specifically. If you have aspirations, to be sold even in Canada or like anywhere internationally outside of your first few years, like where you put those dollars really matters. So you might just do EcoCert, right? So anyhow, there's a lot to consider, but I would suggest if you can, I don't know if it's like free to log on for the first time and see this stuff or not, but if it is, and I can find out and follow up, but Novi has a list of all of the different certifications.
Yeah, I could definitely say it's not free. I ended up going through a consultant to kind of go through everything to make sure we were Credo Clean, but literally like every certification that we needed to check was like another amount for her. So like we just went with Credo as like our first thing we did.
I think that's smart. If you do want to end up doing, then forget about it. If it's too expensive, first of all, I wish it wasn't, and maybe I should talk to them about figuring out something for this group to make it not expensive, but I don't know how quickly that could come together. So in the absence of that, like I would just literally like just scan through online all the different certifications and figure out which one's best for you and reach out to them as early in the process as possible, because I've seen brands really, really get impacted, you know, with product launches and with everything because they were held up in the certification process. So if that's something that matters to you, and by the way, it might not for your launch of your brand, but if it does, I would start looking into it ASAP.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And everyone, this wealth of information that Tara shared is not going to waste. It will be placed on the platform. If you guys are not already on our app, it will be there at you all's disposal to watch whenever you need. Tara, thank you so much. You have been an incredible wealth of information today. And just thank you again. And I know that you've heard it 15 times, but congrats on the acquisition.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to be a resource to all of you going forward. I put my email in the chat. I'll do it again. You all are awesome. And, you know, I think the future of what we're all trying to do here with mission driven, clean, environmentally friendly, all the things. So let me know how I can support you in doing that. And thanks to everybody for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.
All right. Talk to y'all soon. Have a great
Thank you, guys. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.